Hello, guys. Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for August 8th, 2025. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about Micah Parsons and the Cowboys again. I know. I appreciate you, Jerry, by the way, for all the content that you have been able to give me for this first week of the CEO Sports Show. So I greatly do appreciate that. We're also going to be talking about Arch Manning and how his granddad said that he's going to be staying at Texas next year. And we're also going to be talking about my NFC favorite, which is the Los Angeles Rams. So, yeah, without further ado, before we get started, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate that. And please make sure to go check out the other shows on the channel. The Stadium Pulse with Tegan Randolph. He did a great show yesterday. Very proud of the work that he's doing. And also, please make sure to go check out the Mic Drop with Benjamin Garcia. We're going to be going live on Sunday. I got to check the time that he wants to go live, but we will be going live on Sunday. So please make sure to go check that out. And it's Friday. I hope you guys have some fun things planned for the weekend. And, I got a lot of fun stuff planned for the weekend, going out to Texas this weekend. So really looking forward to that. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the episode. So it was reported last night by Sean Sharif. He is on 105.3 The Fan. That's the flagship station of the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. He's saying that there was a 4-hour conversation between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones yesterday. Now, the agent was not physically at the meeting. That's not to say that the agent wasn't present via Zoom or one of these other, meeting type of apps that people use for meetings. I do believe that the Cowboys and Micah Parsons are making progress when it comes to these contract negotiations, because I personally think that Jerry Jones thinks that this negotiation is closer to the finish line than Micah Parsons does, right? And that's why I don't think the Cowboys are really stressing that much, because this is not a hard negotiation to do. Okay, you want 4 years. Fine. You want more money than TJ Watt. Fine. Boom. Money, years, already agreed upon. Right there. Boom. Now it's going to come down to terms and guaranteed and all that stuff. It's not a hard contract to do. When you have a player like this, it's really just about, okay, these are the years that I want. I want 4 years. Team might want 5 years, right? And then the terms. That's all this comes down to. The Cowboys, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, it would shock me, but they could absolutely get this deal done by the end of this weekend if they really wanted to. Now, my prediction for this deal, I think this gets done in 2 weeks. I think that you're going to see not this upcoming Monday, but the following Monday, they'll get a deal done with Micah Parsons, because they want to steal all those headlines for Monday morning. So that is my prediction there. And I actually do think that the Cowboys brass are confident that they're going to get this deal done before the season. But it is interesting to think about, right? The Cowboys do have that 5th-year option control over Micah Parsons, and they have the 2 franchise tag years. So what I'm really interested in is, are the Cowboys actually going to lean on those franchise tags for Micah Parsons? Because I just don't think that that's fair to the player at all. Like, I get it. You do have leverage. You do have that control over a player. But at the same time, like, you don't have to do that. Like, you can actually treat your players the right way, because then what happens is that players aren't going to want to play for your football team. Now, the Cowboys actually might not even really care about that, because they don't really care about attracting big name free agents as it is. So there is that. But, the thing is, like, when you see a team like the Philadelphia Eagles and what they're able to do with signing their guys and taking care of their guys, agents tend to say, okay, we have a player that, maybe they're looking for a prove it year, right? Where they're on a 1-year cheap contract and they're looking to go to a team that, might pay them or put them in a position to get paid. Those agents are going to say, hey, go to the Philadelphia Eagles. If you perform for them, they will pay you. Just like Zach Bond did this year. Zach Bond was what? a $3 million player that the Eagles signed last year. And he went over to Philly. And what happened was he took the 1-year deal and then he got paid top of the market at the linebacker position. Agents aren't doing that for the Cowboys. They're not saying, hey, you're looking for a team for 1 year to boost your value, go to the Cowboys. No, they're going to go to teams that actually take care of their players. And again, that's one of the small margins. It's all about the margins in the NFL. You win on the margins. And that is one of the margins that the good teams, that actually take care of their players early and actually get these guys signed and don't cause a whole hassle for the agent. That's where those teams take advantage of that stuff. Those players that, hey, 1 year, prove it. Go to this team because they're going to get you paid. And agents just, they don't like working with the Cowboys because of the negotiation tactics from the team. The best way to get a deal done to your liking is to just get these things done early, right? Yes, it's something that you hear all the time in the media and on social media. And I get it. I'm not an executive. And if you want to say for certain players, like they just signed Oso Odighizuwa this offseason, if you wanted to say, we'll hold off and we'll wait to pay this guy, fine. That's completely fair because he's not a top of the market player. But when you have a top of the market player like CeeDee Lamb, like Micah Parsons, like Dak Prescott, you just sign these guys early. You get it out of the way. Yes, they might get injured. These guys might get injured and miss time while you pay them. It's a risk you got to take because other teams are taking that risk. And if you're not willing to take the risks that other teams are willing to take to make your football team as good as it could possibly be, you're not going to be as good as them. You're not going to play on the same field as them. It just is what it is. You have to take risks. And especially now they do sign, eventually they do end up signing these guys and paying them a lot of money. But with the injury risk that they've talked about over the offseason, don't you think it would make sense for them to even sign these guys earlier to get them at a lower price? Right? That's how you get these guys to take discounts, quote unquote. It might not be a discount when you sign them, but right now, $40 million is the top of the market for non-quarterbacks. They signed CeeDee Lamb last year to a $34 million contract. That's starting to look like a bargain now because as time passes and as players get paid, that's the stuff that happens. But if they would have signed CeeDee Lamb at the beginning of last offseason or even 2 offseasons ago, maybe you're looking at a guy who's getting paid $28-29 million. And you take a look at what non-quarterbacks are getting paid right now. Now, I will say this. Maybe the player didn't want to get paid at that point, but I'm kind of tired of giving the Cowboys the benefit of the doubt there because it seems like none of these players want to get paid early, even though with other teams, they don't deal with that, right? These guys just get paid early, for most teams. So I don't know. It just is what it is. And we'll see what happens. There was some conflicting reports, by the way, when it came to the report from Sean Sharif, but I am willing to trust Sean Sharif on this one because he is going to talk about it on his radio show on the flagship station for the Cowboys. Not only that, he was the first person to say that, hey, Brian Schottenheimer is going to be the coach for the Cowboys. So that's something that you do have to take into consideration there. But moving on to the next topic. I want to go over to college football here and talk about some college football. We're going to talk about Arch Manning and him staying at Texas, it looks like. And I mean, this is from Arch Manning's granddad. So Archie Manning, obviously. And I want to read this article real quick from On3. This is by Nick Schultz. Ahead of Arch Manning's first season as Texas's starting quarterback, one of the biggest questions is what he will decide after the year. Now in his 3rd year of college football, he will be eligible for the 2026 NFL draft. However, his grandfather doesn't think he'll wind up declaring. Archie Manning predicted Arch will be back at Texas next year. Speaking with Texas Monthly, Manning said he has not had conversations with Arch about his future beyond 2025. However, knowing his grandson, he has an idea of what the former top recruit will do regardless of what happens this year. Quote, Arch isn't going to do that, Manning said of whether Arch would declare for the draft after this season. Quote, he'll be at Texas. Arch Manning spent 2 years in a backup role at Texas after arriving as the top recruit from the 2023 cycle. All told, he has played in 12 games, including 10 appearances last year, while serving as Quinn Ewers' primary backup. Manning had 969 career passing yards and 9 touchdowns to go with 115 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Despite his limited playing time, Manning is still generating buzz as a potential Heisman Trophy contender. He is the betting favorite to win the award at plus 600, according to BetMGM. There's also a question of whether he will declare for the draft, and ESPN gave him a 10% chance of going number 1 overall, should he opt to do so. Speaking at SEC Media Day last month, Manning received a question about his future plans. He said his focus is simply the task at hand, which at the time was speaking with a huge crowd of reporters before worrying about his professional future. Quote, I'm really just worried about going through this interview and then getting through the run tomorrow, Manning said. I'm just focused on this year and getting better each day. In fact, there's a sense in the NFL that there's a strong chance Manning returns to Texas in 2026. Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam said as much last week when asked about the Longhorns quarterback. The question came amid speculation from Fox Sports' Colin Cowherd. The franchise could be considering a plan to select him and hire Nick Saban as coach. Quote, I think if you know the Manning family, I would bet that, and I don't know Arch at all, I'd bet he stays in college 2 years. Quote, I don't even think that's worth discussing. And of course, it's Colin Cowherd that comes up with that. Not surprising at all. I do believe that Arch Manning is going to stay 2 years at Texas. And the main reason why I think that is because of the people that are his mentors, right? It's the Manning family. And the one thing that the Manning family is going to instill in Arch is fall in love with the process. Get into a process and fall in love with it. That's what the quarterback position is all about. The quarterback position is all about having a routine. It's all about having a process and executing that process day in and day out and staying true to that process. And I think that's something that he's being taught right now. Just keep on keeping on. We have a plan. The plan's going to work, and you're going to be as developed as you could possibly be going into the NFL. And I think that this is all a strategic plan from the Manning family, because having 1 year as a starter and then going into the NFL, I just don't see the Manning family wanting Arch to do that. Now, maybe if Arch was the starter in his sophomore year and he had 2 years of starting experience, maybe then it's a more realistic possibility that he were to come out in the 2026 NFL draft. But I just don't see that being a possibility right now. And I especially think that, he's going to want to win a national championship at Texas. And I don't know if they have the team this year to do that. Give it a year, though. I think Texas is a year away from being, to me, the national championship favorite, right? They have a lot of young players on that team that I think could really develop this year. And they're second-year players when you talk about, Simmons and Wingo, right? And then you have Arch Manning and you have the Gooseby, the tackle that they have. So they have a lot of second-year players that I think are going to develop into really good players for this program and be the foundation of what they have in 2026. And I think that's the year where I'm like, man, pay attention to Texas. They are going to be a big time problem, and they could potentially win a national championship in 2026. But, one thing that you see with a lot of these quarterbacks now going into the NFL after, 1 year as a starter or, limited time as a starting quarterback is that they just come in and they're underdeveloped, right? Like once they come into these NFL teams, they have to start a whole entire development program. Look at what's going on right now with Anthony Richardson. He left Florida way too early, right? Now, some people may say he left Florida at the right time because his stock was probably going to plummet the following season. Fair point. But like a guy like Caleb Williams, who granted he did have a lot of playing experience when he was at USC, but as a quarterback, he was underdeveloped. And now you're starting to see that there is a development process with Caleb Williams. And, maybe that takes another year over there in Chicago, right? Like maybe that takes another year, and now you're getting into your third year and you're starting to ask yourself, should we pay this guy going into the third year? Now we'll see what happens over there. But I don't think the Manning family wants that. I think they want him to go in as a rookie and be as developed as he could possibly be, and have it be like an Andrew Luck situation where he comes in day one and you could tell, oh, this guy is poised. This guy is a guy that's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the game for a long time. And that's a guy who, no doubt about it, we're going to pay after his third year. That's where I think the Manning family is looking at this and saying, this is the way we want to go. Because I just think that Andrew Luck model is just the way to go, because I think that he was as NFL ready of a quarterback as you could possibly get. And not only was he NFL ready, he had an extremely high ceiling. And I think that is where the Manning family is going to go with this. And I just want to say, I'm very impressed with Arch Manning and how he's handling this whole situation, because he went into this program. He did not act like he was this big time recruit. He was asked to be the backup. And even in his second year, where you start to see these big time recruits get that opportunity to be a starter, Steve Sarkisian was like, look, Quinn wants to stay another year. Could you be the backup? And he was like, no problem. Didn't transfer, did as much as he possibly could to be as good of a teammate as he possibly can be. And I think that, you just see that type of stuff, and his teammates see that too. The teammates and the recruits coming into the program see that. And they see, wow, look at how selfless this guy is. That is the type of leader that you want. And you could tell they really gravitate towards Arch Manning. So I'm very high on him. I think that ultimately he will be the number one overall pick whenever he decides to come out. I know, we haven't seen much from him as a starter. And I know a lot of this is more so hype than it is production that we've seen on the field. But I just have such a good feeling about this young man. And I think that he is going to make waves this year. And I think that he will win a national championship at the University of Texas. That's just the way I feel about Arch Manning and in that program as a whole, and the direction that program's going in. Okay. So I do want to take a quick break here and remind you guys to subscribe to the Mic Drop podcast on YouTube. Link will be in the description. If it's not in the description already, we'll add it. If not, it is on the homepage of the CEO Sports Show. And then same thing with the Stadium Pulse with Tegan Randolph. He talks college football. He's way more in tap with college football than I am, even though I do try my best to be as good as I possibly can covering college football. I like to learn from him. His podcast is very informative, and I'm just very happy to have both of those guys on the platform, and they've done a great job so far. But yeah, so we do have preseason football over the weekend. We had some preseason football yesterday. I didn't really watch much of it just because I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I know it doesn't sound like, nerdy football guy to say, but I don't really care about the preseason. Like, yeah, sure, there's going to be rookies that I'm interested in watching that I'll go back and I'll watch their tape, like Torrey Horton from Seattle. Like, I'm interested to watch his tape and see, the type of player that he is. But these preseason games, I'm sorry, I'm not going to waste my time watching these games. I don't have much time as it is, but that's definitely not something that I want to, spend a Friday night watching a preseason football game. They don't really mean that much. And I'll just go back and watch the tape, and I'll learn way more from that than I would watching on the broadcast view. So, okay, next topic. I am extremely high on the Los Angeles Rams this upcoming season. I think that they're going to win the NFC this upcoming season. And it's like kind of crazy that people aren't looking at this team as the high-level contender that they really are. Like, I think you need to talk about this team when you talk about Philadelphia, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore. Like, that's the tier that I think the Rams are in. When you look at this roster, I think that they're loaded. And the reason why I think they're going to win the NFC is because they have a really damn good roster surrounding the best quarterback in the NFC and the best head coach in the NFC, and a combo that have won a Super Bowl in the past. I think their offensive line, I think, is above average. Their receiver duo, my Lord, that receiver duo is one of the best in the league. I think Davante Adams and this Sean McVay offense, holy cow, that is going to be fireworks. And I also think on the defensive side of the ball, I think they have, to me, a top 3 defensive line in football. I think the 3 best defensive lines are the Steelers, the Rams, and the New York Giants. And not only that, they're a young defensive line as well. So their defensive line was made up of mostly first and second year players last year. Now these guys are getting into their second and third year when you talk about Verse, Braden Fisk, Young, Kobe Turner. Like, they added Poona Ford to this defensive line. It's one of the best in football. And I think people need to start realizing that that is one of the best in football. And I just think that, when you look at the Rams and you see that they almost beat the Eagles last year, and I think if that game wasn't played on a snowy field, they end up beating the Eagles, they end up beating the Commanders, and they're in the Super Bowl. And I think we would have gotten a much more entertaining Super Bowl than the one we got. But I think that there is revenge on their mind when you talk about the Los Angeles Rams. There is a revenge on their mind when it comes to what happened with the Eagles, because they really feel like they should have won that football game. And rightfully so. I mean, they damn near almost did it. And I think that they did everything in their power to not win that football game, and they still almost won that football game, which I think is wildly impressive. But now, like, when you look at their division, I think that their division, like the teams below them, are like above, like average to above average football teams. Like, I don't think there's a bad team in that division, but I think that the Rams will probably go 5-1, 6-0 in the division. So, when you look at the NFC West, that's just the way I think it's going to go. And I think that they're going to contend for the number 1 overall seed, because Philly does have a really difficult schedule. And I personally think that the Rams are a better team than Philly. I know the Eagles last year were an incredible football team, but I would also say, like, did anybody pay attention to the fact that they lost like 8 players that were like pretty good players on their team? Like, I know they draft and develop well, but I just look at the Rams and I see a team that added, I think, upgraded over Cooper Kupp with Davante Adams, and adding Poona Ford. They're very aware of what their impediment was when it came to playing the Philadelphia Eagles. They struggled to stop Saquon Barkley. When you add a guy like Poona Ford, who is one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in football, that's going to be something that you're going to have to pay attention to. Now, obviously, Chris Shula as the defensive coordinator did some really good things with them last year. I'm very high on this team. And not only that, when it comes to the Los Angeles Rams, I think that they're the type of team that they want to establish the run and they want to build play action off that run. Because when you look at Matt Stafford, he is starting to get up there in age, right? Like, he's starting to get older. We're not sure if he's even going to play at the beginning of the season. But if he doesn't play, I still think like Jimmy Garoppolo is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, maybe he's a very, very low level starting quarterback. But if you have a low level starting quarterback as your backup quarterback, you feel pretty good about that. And the fact that you have Sean McVay, I think, that to me is such a game changer, because we've seen, like, I think that the Rams over the past 2 years, their roster has been like above average to good, but they play above their roster. Like, what their roster is on paper, I think that they play above that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have a quarterback that I think Stafford's top 5 in my personal opinion. Like, I have him at 5. We've seen this guy play big in big games, and not only that, like, when you look at him as a talent, this dude is as talented as they come. Now, yeah, you do have to worry about the age, but like, to me, with a quarterback like Stafford, when you talk about like a pure pocket passing quarterback, more of a gunslinger type guy, the age to me isn't as jarring as, let's just say, a quarterback that uses his athleticism more and uses, his ability to create plays out of structure to make big plays. Like, that's not Matt Stafford. So like him being a bit older, that to me isn't something that really scares me off and makes me look at them as anything less than a really good football team in this conference. But I mean, like when you look at the NFC, like obviously if you were to power rank them right now, you have to put the Eagles at 1 because they did win the Super Bowl last year. But if you're asking me who the best teams in the NFC, who I believe the best teams in the NFC are, I think you're talking about the Rams, the Eagles, the Bucks. I'm going to talk about the Vikings on Monday. Hopefully, I did plan to talk about them today, but I got sidetracked with the Arch Manning thing. I think that those are the best teams in the conference. Like those teams did things over the offseason to make themselves a more legitimate contender. Like I think that adding Davante Adams to that team is such a difference maker. And I think that he is going to create, he's going to show people. It wouldn't surprise me by the end of the season that we are asking the question, like, who's really the number 1 wide receiver on the Rams? Because like, while I really do like Puka Nacua, I think that as an overall receiver, Davante Adams is still better than him. Davante Adams has played on offenses that are as remedial as you get. I mean, you talk about the New York Jets offense and what that team did last year, and then the Las Vegas Raiders, who, I mean, like those two teams are the two biggest train wrecks in the NFL. And he was still productive, right? Like it's not the type of Davante Adams production that we saw from him, let's just say in, 2018 to 2022 range. Like it's not that, but he was still productive. And I think the type of receiver that he is, that type of receiver ages gracefully, right? His route running, his ability to navigate in zones, his ability to play with the type of nuance that Davante Adams plays with, that to me translates well. So I'm very high on the Rams. I think that they're a legit Super Bowl contender. Like I talked about the Lions the other day and I said, I don't think the Lions are Super Bowl contenders. I think, because there's a difference between a really good team, which I think the Lions will be, and a Super Bowl contender. Rams to me are a Super Bowl contender. No doubt about it. And I think they're going to have a very successful season. But talking about successful, I think we had a very successful first week of the CEO Sports Show and Kretschman Media in general. I'm very, very proud of the work that we've been able to do over this first week. And I'm very happy that you guys are along for the journey and, just grateful, just really, really grateful. Second week will be better than the first. Third week will be better than the second. And every single week after that, we're just going to continue to get better and better and better. And this is just only the beginning. So I appreciate you guys for coming out for the show. And I will talk to you guys on the next episode.